So, before I get started, this isn't going to be the typical story analysis of the game as a whole. I really just want to wax poetic about the feeling one gets when the game introduces itself after you press the start button, basically around the first 10 minutes or so. Right off the bat, you're greeted with Harry coming to from being knocked out due to the accident, and he is just running into darkness, pitch black darkness, forwards and towards something or someone. Now, it could just be a simple trick to hide a loading screen, but I do think that even if that is the case, it basically functions as a foreshadowing of what's to come, racing into the unknown and into the dark. When you take control of Harry, you have two options: go forward or turn around and explore a bit. If you decide to explore, you can go back to the car and see the results of the accident. He makes mention that it won't be of use to you, obviously. That means that you won't be able to get through the area quickly. Your only means of getting from point A to point B in this rather large open space is by walking and running. If you decide to continue ignoring the current crises and explore a little bit more, you'll see that if you walk up the street past your car, you'll come to a rather unnatural blockade. It is very reminiscent of how the Deadites isolate people in The Evil Dead. Take that as you may. One thing that I think is absolutely genius about this initial area is the open door to the not 7-Eleven. You find yourself in what feels like an abandoned town with no clue what's going on or where Cheryl is. What happens when you try and enter the convenience store? Harry's attention is instantly diverted and he darts off, going to chase after what you think might be Cheryl. Outside of the fact that it's a nice way of keeping people on track and focused on the task at hand, it also feels like you're intentionally being guided by some invisible force. Maybe help was there. Could have been another person. It doesn't matter. Focus, focus, focus. Now, if you run across one of these signs, you know that, in most instances, that it isn't a good idea to test and see how big the dog is. In most situations, it isn't a meme, and a dire wolf is likely to try and bite your head off for trespassing. So, when you cross the threshold, the first thing that you see in frame is that of what appears to be an eviscerated animal, more than likely the dog that you were just warned about. The questions compound. Why was, let's say, a dog that big just walking without a leash? What killed it? More importantly, where did it go? There is only one path forward, so you press on. Weaponless, mind you. No longer do you have open space to run around in, but the alleyway is incredibly cramped. It's claustrophobia inducing. Navigating the acute angles in what feels like irregular community planning, you finally come to a stop and you're introduced to one of the elements that would go on to define the series, the town itself, or rather, the other. Day instantly turns to night, and now your already shaky grasp on the current unreality is shattered. Minutes, seconds, and hours define nothing, as the concept of time no longer applies. Your only light source is that of a lighter that you carry around. The atmosphere changes as soon as you take a breath. Now, I'm not going to focus on what immediately stands out when you turn the corner. If you've seen the film Jacob's Ladder, the tone is reminiscent of that. However, let's focus on the geometry, the tone of the locale. The shift in lighting changes, the feel from confusing and triggering anxiety to that of being in the presence of an unwelcoming and hostile being. Then the structures change from brick and board to you being ferried by your own determination and fear through a hellscape of blood, wire, and torn flesh. Cordoned off from reality and any sense of safety, you press on because, at that moment, the only threat to your person is your imagination. Well, that is until you stumble upon a corpse, mangled beyond belief, and hung crucified on the fence. Before the horror was at your feet, something you can walk over and easily move away from. Now it's in your face, above you, towering over you. The walls never talk, but now they speak with anger. The only question is, who are they talking to? As you try and back off, you're attacked. If you run, you can't escape. You simply die, and then wake up. One of the more important aspects of the next scene, to me, isn't just the fact that you emerge from the nightmare like you were sleeping. It isn't even the importance of the character and the narrative itself. To put it simply, before you woke up, you crashed in a seemingly deserted town, unable to leave, one which monsters may or may not exist in. Your daughter is missing. She still is. The problem is that this was a whole lot simpler before you came to. Now, the existence of another person means that Cheryl could have been kidnapped instead of just lost. A human element is involved, and if another person is here, and you know you can't leave, or you think you can't leave, then, well, that means they probably can't either. So in essence, none of you are getting outside help. That and you coming to an entirely different area means that you can't even trust your own short-term memory or the experience that you felt what might have been a nightmarish dreamscape. You get a gun, then two of you go your separate ways. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is the save room experience. And this is more directed to the group of people that play the Resident Evil series. In those games, with the exception of a couple situations in the entire series, a save room is a place that declares safety. So you grab up all the items and attempt to leave. When you do so, you're immediately attacked. The monsters are real, and so is the hell that you went through. And that area that was very peaceful, and which you might have known to be a safe space, isn't. When you navigate your way back to the area where you were unceremoniously killed off, you'll find that it collapsed in on itself. So not only are the monsters populating the streets now, but the landscape and the structures within it can shift on a dime. Maybe, just maybe, all that stuff you went through wasn't actually a dream. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to talk about. Originally this was just going to be about the section after you come to the beware of the dog sign. Thank you for watching. I don't know if I'm going to make this a series or whatever. I've kind of just wanted to make something about something I like, so that's why we're here. Yeah, go in peace. Have a good evening, morning, afternoon, night, wherever you are, and stay safe out there, and take care of yourselves. And goodbye.